Welcome to the Yappy Hour, powered by Yappily, the podcast for dog lovers who want to deepen their understanding of their pets and provide the best care possible. I'm your host, Nathan Dunleavy, and in today's episode, I'm joined by the amazing Dr. Sophie Bell, a vet and the founder of Animal Love Pet First Aid. Sophie is on a mission to empower pet parents and professionals with the skills they need to handle emergencies and care for their animals confidently. We also talk about the importance of early desensitization to the vet environment, which is a game changer for your dog's well-being. Whether you're a new dog parent or a seasoned pro, you'll come away with valuable tips and insights that you can use right away. So let's dive in. Grab a cup of tea, settle in. Hello and welcome back to the Yappy Hour, powered by Yappily. I'm your host, Nathan Dunleavy, and I'm so excited to bring you our next episode. Even more excited that we've got our very first vet joining us as our guest today. So Dr. Sophie Bell from Animal Love Pet First Aid is our guest. And as I say, she's our first vet. So I'm so excited to have a chat with her and bring you lots of expertise and useful information. So without further ado, Sophie, welcome to the Yappy Hour. It's such a pleasure to have you here today. How are you doing?
I'm really well, Nathan. Thank you for having me on. It's lovely to be here.
Brilliant. Great to have you with us. So, just for our listeners or those that may not know you yet, can you just share a little bit about your journey as a vet and how you came to start Animal Love Pet First Aid?
Sure, yeah, I can. So I had a really funny journey into all of it. I started off as a musician in life, would you believe it? So
Oh, okay.
I didn't do the whole go to school, go to college, go to university. I had a very diverse lifestyle. And then when I finally grew up, well, the first stage of growing up, I went, Sophie, you really need to actually get an actual job. Like, being a musician is a job, and it really is. But I needed to get a more, I guess, stable career. And I knew from the age of 6 that I wanted to be a vet. And I was
Oh,
in the
really?
space. I did, but I was never, you know what it's like. Kids get told at school, you're not good enough, you're not clever enough.
Oh,
And then when I finished school, I kind of had those doubts and thought, yeah, I'm not in the mood for studying further. And my parents were really great. They were like, if you want to pursue a music career, go. So I left home at
okay.
15, disappeared off to London, had a music career for, well, about 5 years, and then went back
All
to
right.
so,
Okay.
so that's kind of how it started. So I didn't go for the normal, one type of education after another. That's why I always say to people, it's never too late.
Never
When
too
I was at
late.
vet school, I had people in their mid-50s learning to be vets.
Really?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's never
Oh,
too late. So I think
brilliant.
that's an important point for anyone thinking, oh, I'd love to go and pursue something that I always wanted to do. So I went and did that. And then it was a very random conversation one day where I was in my garden of the house that I'm in now, and my mum said to me, Sophie, you work so hard. And I did. I thought 40 night shifts in a row was normal. That was a real, yeah, I know, gross, right? But I thought that
Wow.
was normal. And she said to me, you're a real workaholic and you're away a lot. I was away a lot. And she said, can't you do something else with animals where you can still work as a vet, but less hours and do something from home? So I qualified to become a dog groomer.
Oh, okay.
I know my life is so random, and it was a fantastic career path for me because I had that mixture of still being with the animals, but I could do some of it from home. Don't get me wrong, being a dog groomer is just as challenging as being a vet. They're all are. All
Yes,
these
I
pet
bet.
professionals are, you have a tough time, at times.
Yeah.
And when I was on my dog grooming training, the lady that I learnt with said to me, "You're a vet. Could you maybe teach us a bit more about first aid because there's the curriculum was quite basic." And she said, I want to
Okay.
learn more. I want our students to learn more. And then I thought, there's something in this. You're right. There's a lot that people could learn. There's a lot that people could do to help their pets. And ultimately, that's what I do as a vet. So why not pass
Yeah,
knowledge across? So I
absolutely.
started teaching, and I remember my first gig, so to speak. I think it was 3 people in a dingy little room in Southampton.
Oh, it's where I'm from,
Oh, is it?
Southampton. Yeah.
I used to work as a vet
Well,
there, but yeah, it's great.
oh, that's where I am now in
Are
Southampton. What
you?
are the chances? Yes, my
Yes.
hometown.
Well, so it was easy for me because I worked in Southampton anyway, and then I had a friend sort of say, "Do you want to use this little room?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." Gathered about 3 or 4 people together. Probably didn't do anything half as near as what I teach now, but they seemed really enthusiastic. And a few of them said, "Oh, I'd love it if I can come back in 3 years' time and redo it." By the time they came back in 3 years' time, it wasn't a 3-hour course anymore; it was a 7-hour day.
Oh, wow.
Um, and so I've just gone from there. I've added additional courses about additional topics, and I
Yes, I
feel like
see
I'm
that
the
on your website.
middleman. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I'm the
Middleman,
middleman. So
middlewoman.
that's right. So you've got the CPD that's aimed at vets and the sort of veterinary
Is
professionals.
that the high-end stuff, like
Yeah,
really intense? Yeah.
the really intense stuff. And then I like to be in the middle where I'm bringing that information to pet professionals and pet owners in a way they can
Yes.
understand.
Yes. Because I
So
can
that's
imagine
my
it's a minefield.
It is, and I think a lot of them say what we need is it explained in a way that we understand and also practical. What's the
Yeah.
useful stuff we can take? So that's where it all developed, and that's been about over 10 years, I'd say. I've probably
Oh,
developed.
wow.
So it's
What a
been,
journey.
and I know, and I still play music,
I
and I still work as a vet. So I have all of it going on.
Oh, so you're doing sort of a bit of everything because, well, they're clearly all your passions. Your face lights up when you're talking about it. So, you've been on a journey. I love a bit of a story and an interesting background. Like that. And yeah, I live in Southampton. I'm born and bred in Southampton. So that was a nice little sort of segue into there that you started off there as well. And yeah, so you're still doing some vet stuff like in practice, are
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I not quite doing 40 nights in a row anymore because
Oh
obviously realised
God,
that was really wrong. And I always say, "Oh, I work part time as a vet," but most weeks I probably do 30 hours in clinic. But
that's
to me,
that's
I
full
always think
on.
that's part time
No,
because
it's still full on.
it is full on. But I love it, and I think what's happened now because I'm not doing silly things like 80 hours or 90 hours purely in vet work. The
Yeah.
passion is really high for me. So when I work with clients, they get 110% of me because
Mm,
that time off where I'm teaching and then the time back where I'm actually putting my skills to use and
yeah.
I don't get that burnout feeling, which I think I would have got
Good.
to by now.
You
So
would have.
I
Yeah,
think
it's
so.
full
I
on.
see colleagues that are, burnt out and I don't blame them. There's a lot
A
in the
lot of
vet.
compassion fatigue, I'd imagine, as well, which a lot of
Yeah.
pet professionals, well, vets definitely probably suffer with it
Yeah.
when
And
they're
that's just
so
something.
invested.
It is, and it's something I never wanted to see in myself. So the
Mm.
balance I have now means that I never feel that way. I'm
Oh,
always
good.
very compassionate every time I work because I think our pets, they need us. And so what they
Do.
need is a vet that's going to tell them funny stories, kiss them, cuddle them because I am a really soppy pet. But I need to do that because for me, I think I want you to think that I'm here to be really caring. Even though I'm stabbing a needle in you right now, I want you to think I'm doing it out of kindness. So,
Yes. So, I mean, where are you in practice? Is it like a first opinion vets? Where's that to?
yeah, so I do a mixture of days and I do a mixture of
You do like
nights. So I do
locum.
days locally and then I do nights right over in Berkshire.
Okay.
And I keep that
Good.
mix going because at night I see mainly the big emergencies and during the day
Yes.
more of the routine. So it keeps that
Yeah.
nice balance
Nice
of,
balance.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you've got to keep your skills
Oh,
up, and it's something I trained hard
yeah.
for and it's something that I love. And so I think I couldn't just commit to one area and say, right, all I'm going to do is keep teaching everywhere. I think it's
Okay.
nice to have the mix.
Yeah. And do you then like? I've got to ask you what your musical side is because I've got visions of you either singing a song or playing an instrument to the pet.
Oh gosh, I'm singing. I always sing. It's quite funny actually.
It's great for the soul.
Oh, it really is. So I used to gig a lot. I mean, I don't so much now since having my children. I might just pick up the guitar at home and do a few bits. My dream was to
Oh,
be an actual rock star. I wanted to smash a guitar up on stage, but the reality is, I sing more like a country singer. So, which was always my annoyance as a kid. I'd be like, "No, I don't want this. You don't want to be up there, like going for it." And they'd be like, "No, no, really. You're kind of more like Dolly Parton kind of genre." And I'm
oh,
like,
Dolly,
"Oh,
working 9 to 5. Well, not in your case. You're working 9 till 9
nine."
or something. Oh, brilliant. Oh, I love that.
But it's great.
Thank you, Sophie, for telling us a little bit about your journey. I love where there's a great story behind it. So, just moving on to our next question. Why do you think it's so important for pet parents, not just professionals, to
Yeah.
learn about first aid for their animals?
It's funny because when you go on a course, I always ask at the beginning, who's here as a pet owner? Obviously, most of them are pet owners and pet professionals, but who's here purely as a pet owner? And I would say probably it's always 20% or less that are there as pet owners. When
Yeah.
you ask people about it, or people say, oh, you teach first aid, they're like, but that's what the vet's there for. And I always say to them, yeah, but the vet's not going to be next to your side if, okay, something extreme like CPR, it's very unusual for people to have to do that. So that's probably a poor example. But something like picking up the lip of your dog and checking the colour of their gums,
Yeah.
knowing what that
Capillary refill test?
yeah, that as well. And knowing that simple how to do that basic clinical exam. It doesn't have to be, and what it means. And there isn't, often owners only present the dog or cat or whatever pet it is to the vet when it looks really ill and they don't pick
Mm,
up the subtle signs. And sometimes I think, oh my gosh, if only you'd come 4 weeks ago, this would be a different story,
okay.
or 3 hours ago or whatever. And
Yeah,
so, it's what I always say, that cliche, but knowledge is power. And
definitely.
and it's protective, isn't it? Because people don't, when I'm there saying to them, do you know your dog's got a massive internal bleed and it doesn't need to be due to trauma? And they cannot take that information in because it's horrendous news and we're fighting for a life or we're putting a pet to sleep. And they can't
Mm,
take that in. And something that I teach on a course is you'll pick stuff like that up by 3 simple ways of looking at your dog. You'll be like, this is really serious. That's what I think people need, that to understand what they're dealing with, rather than, okay, the dog's got, a bit of a bleed on its leg, and most people have the common sense to stem a bleed. But it
yes.
goes deeper than that. People don't know that, a certain type of stretch might mean actually that dog's in pain, or this style of breathing is not right, and just
Mm.
making them appreciate what is wrong and picking it up.
Yes. Well, we do it for ourselves as humans. Like, most humans are first aid trained, and you're living with your partner, your husband, your wife, and you know some basics. But why not transfer that to uh, your animals, your pets, and learn about animal first aid?
Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? And I like to incorporate in my first aid courses just lots of health tips as well, and discuss hot topics like neutering and
Mm.
vaccinations and should I, shouldn't I, what's the, and all those. And I go in head first and think, I know that some of these are really controversial topics. Let's talk about it. What's your,
Love
and so I like to do that because it's important that people know the latest information that's going on. I like to arm people with good information so they can make informed decisions, because the pet
Absolutely.
is, they're the voice, aren't they, of the pet, and so they've got to know all of these things.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you. We're going to move on to our next section is around the importance of pet first aid for owners and professionals. So we touched on it obviously a bit there in the previous question, but just to sort of delve into that a little bit more now. Sophie, what are some of the most common pet emergencies you've encountered as a vet, and how can first aid training help owners respond better in those situations?
So it's funny, things change over time. Take me
Yeah.
back 10 years ago, and I
I
would have
bet.
said that if I was working nights, I would see a lot of bloat cases. I
Yes.
hardly see any now. The last one I saw was about 6.5 years ago. So
Wow.
I know, I don't ask me why, and I'm glad about that, and I'm touching wood right here and there as I'm saying it.
So am I.
I know, so I'm like, please, I'm due to work a couple of nights soon. I'm like, don't jinx yourself, Sophie.
Don't.
I would say probably definitely the internal bleed, like I said. So usually that's due to a mass on the spleen, and it's a very
Mm,
silent growth.
mm.
And last night shift I worked, I saw two in one night. So that puts that into perspective as to
Wow.
how common that is.
Yes.
Um, I guess other kind of emergencies, but much easier for owners to appreciate, are things like we see a lot of vomiting and diarrhea, but bloody, horrible sort of
Oh,
bloody,
okay. Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
horrid as well. I see a fair amount of heart disease where the dog's actually gone into heart failure as well, and an owner hasn't really appreciated that the breathing is really wrong, and I've actually mistaken it and thought that the dog has kennel cough. So I see that
Right.
a fair amount. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
I guess then it's just your usual kind of, wounds and cuts and things like that. A lot of diseases, though, that I see, as I said before, I always think, oh my gosh, I wish that you'd recognize something was off. And as I say in
Mm.
every first aid course, and I've already said it on here, the one thing you do with your dog is lift the lip and appreciate the color of their gums. Those gums
Yeah.
will tell you so much.
Yeah.
And you'll know if it's something horrible, autoimmune, the dog will be starting to look pale before you notice symptoms of them being ill. So you're
Yeah.
likely to have them treated 2 to 3 weeks before they find them collapsed.
Yeah.
So just little things, and it doesn't take a
So
lot for them to know.
so with that test, isn't it like you press on it and then it has to fill back up with blood or go back pink or it
Yeah,
stays
so
white?
that's right. So there's two things really. The gum color, so just the general color is really, really important.
Mm.
It should be salmon pink, and the gum should feel slippery and wet when you touch them. The capillary refill time, like you say, you push hard on the gum, and within 2
Oh, to
seconds,
do it.
back. I know, don't.
Don't
I know.
do my own.
I'm trying to keep my hand down by my side so I don't push my own gums. I do it when I'm teaching as well. I'm like, you do, and I'm thinking, I don't even think everyone wants to see my mouth, but
I used to tell people that when I did puppy classes, though, part of like
good.
grooming your puppy and obviously things to check over like ticks and lumps and bumps, I used to demonstrate the
Yeah.
capillary refill test.
You do it, mate. And actually, one thing you were saying about before, when you were saying about common emergencies, is not an emergency, but a common thing that I see a lot of now that's so underappreciated is dogs with dementia. And
Oh,
it's big time. And people just think
right.
it's part of getting old, but there's lots we can do. Or they think that perhaps they're in pain because it can look very similar. It gets often left for a long time before someone will come to the vet. And I think it's because the fear of that there isn't anything that can be done to help and they're going to have to put them to sleep. And
Mm.
you tell them there's a lot of things we can do. We really can make them start to come back in the room, and feel a bit better. But by that stage, owners are often exhausted because these dogs with dementia can be up all night howling and pacing. And
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
I know, and although it's not an emergency as such, I think it's really
It's
underappreciated by owners that, it happens and there's stuff we can do, but get in early.
getting early. And it's all about those early signs, isn't it? Again.
It
Yeah.
is. It really is. And I think if you can pick up on it quickly, we can start things to really enhance their kind of brain activity and help them. And, actually, there's things you can do before they even develop dementia, even something simple like put a bit of kale in their food every day. It's a great
Oh,
antioxidant
okay.
and it will help preserve
Yes.
the brain. So,
Yeah.
get them doing lots of sniffing games, brain activities like we would as a human, anything
Yeah.
like that. And you'll preserve their mental state anyway. So there's loads of stuff you can learn.
Really big on enrichment and getting the dog using their nose. Really good for brain and mental stimulation and
It's
stuff.
so good,
Yeah.
isn't it? And it helps with relaxation as well.
It
Like,
does, helps promote calmness,
it does.
relaxation. Yeah,
It
brilliant.
makes them feel sleepy, even though, people always think to make their dog feel tired, you've got to go on a, 20-mile walk.
I know.
And you don't,
Wow, 20 minutes sniffing is just the same as a 60-minute outdoor walk in terms of brain and mental
yeah,
stimulation. So,
it is. And it's
yeah,
important to mix the both. And I think,
it is
it's nice to have a dog being able to do both of those things because it's important. Their mental well-being is incredibly important.
definitely. Oh, and if that can help with, the whole dementia thing as well, then yeah, why not?
Trust me, Nathan, I put kale in my food nearly every single day. Like, I eat it like a mad woman because I'm like trying to keep my brain cells alive.
Yeah, keep it going, keep yourself topped up. Why do you think that pet first aid has historically been seen as a professional skill, and how do we change that mindset for pet parents?
It's hard, isn't it? I think firstly, a lot of pet parents are not even aware that there's such a thing. People ask
Mm.
me sometimes, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And I say I'm a vet, but I teach, and I teach. Then they say, "Oh, what do you teach?" And I'll say, first aid, pet first aid. They're absolutely astounded. What, really? So,
Wow.
like, would you teach something like the Heimlich maneuver if they were choking? Yeah, I do. And they can't actually believe that it's a thing. So I think firstly, it's a not knowing. They just don't know that it exists. So they probably don't go looking for it.
Mhm.
And I think there's always that classic of, we've got our vet to do that. So why
Exactly.
do we need to know this? And it's that same age old thing. I've seen it, not specifically for myself, but some colleagues who also teach first aid, because there's some wonderful instructors out there. And I've seen, they've made a post and somebody's written on there, this that's my vet's job. Why would I want to do this? And it's a weird mentality, because I just think, trust me, your vet's not going to be there when your dog's choking. It's not going to
Not
happen.
24/7. I mean, it's quite naive, isn't it? So I think
It
it comes back to raising awareness, and it's all about owner education, isn't it?
It is. And I have to say, as I've gone along, I find I work or out of many different venues now. And this last 12 months, as I said to you, usually less than 20% are pet owners. I've been to a few courses where only 2 out of 20 people are actual pet professionals. So I have seen the
Right.
opposite. And
So it's a bit of a shift going.
there's been more of a shift. I think there's been
Good.
more people taking it than ever before.
Mm.
In comparison, there's been that. Usually it's always pet professionals, but now, as I say, I do some courses and I'm like, wow, the show of hands is more for the pet owners, and that surprises me. So
Yeah,
that's good news. And I
yeah,
guess all we can do is just keep spreading the word, and perhaps people that are professionals in their sort of advertising their services and showing that they're pet first aid trained, and they share their
mm,
certificates with their followers and
yeah,
their owners, that might encourage owners to say, oh, well, hang on, what's that then? I'd quite like to
definitely.
learn that. So
No,
yeah,
very
I
big
think
on
it will
that.
get better. Yeah,
Yeah, very big on that, making showcasing that you've done it, and it, as a professional, it kind of sets you apart, and as an owner as well, it's a great thing to obviously know about. What would be the one skill or technique that you think every dog parent should know in case of an emergency?
so it's hard really, because obviously I always teach how to give CPR,
Yeah.
but then I've out of all the people that I've taught, I've probably only had about 3 people ever that have had to perform CPR on a dog. So
Wow.
it's a very rare occurrence. So although it's
Yeah.
useful to learn, my worry is, and I always say to people on a course, what I want you to do is, on a rainy Sunday afternoon, I want you to dig out this information that I've given you, and I want you to practice it, because otherwise you'll forget. And if you're only,
Yes.
you won't be able to do it, because none of us can remember what someone told us 2 years ago to that extent. Um,
Exactly.
I think helping with choking, actually, because I do see a
Mm,
fair amount of choking cases, and I think people think, quick, get them in the back of the car and get them to the vets, and they'll get the item out. You haven't got time for that. So I
no.
think for a real emergency, I'd say choking was the one that they really, and often if you get the item out, you don't have to give CPR anyway. So that
Okay.
would be the thing that I would say would be the most useful.
Yeah, I'd imagine just have to be careful with the shark teeth and going trying to fish it out.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and actually, you saying that as well, not really, but I was just thinking the other thing that would be very useful for owners is how to manage a seizure, because that
Right.
gets managed really badly sometimes. People do
Okay.
things like, oh, I've wrapped them up and kept them warm. I mean, if anything, a seizure obviously causes the dog to overheat, and we need to cool them
Mm,
down. So,
right.
and also learning more about heat stroke, because there's so much misinformation and it
Oh
moves on and
god.
changes.
Yeah, it changes a lot.
It does. So little things like that I think will be the difference between life and death. And actually, the more I think of it, there's loads of these things that are very useful for people. So it's
Yeah,
hard to pinpoint one.
we need a whole sort of manual or something, just the common things. Perfect, brilliant. Thank you so much for that. We're going to move on to early desensitization. Now that's a big word. So early desensitization to the vet environment, particularly obviously when, the dogs are young, why it's important that they get used to obviously going to the vets. We don't always want it just to be that they're going to the vets for something bad and that
No.
they associate it with bad. I used to say to my puppy clients when I was teaching one to in classes, "Oh, just take them into the vets once a week. Get the receptionist to give them a treat.
Yeah.
Let go in once a week, twice a month. Just build up that so they don't just associate that they're going to go in and get like."
Yeah.
Pricked with a needle or whatever. So I was really big on sort of mentioning that to puppy owners. But in terms of like the dogs that are fearful because they're visiting the vet, which can make routine checkups really stressful. Why do you feel early desensitization to the vet environment is important, Sophie?
Well, it is really for the reasons like you said. Now, the trouble is, I think sometimes in the veterinary world, there's so many time constraints and things are very
Mm,
rushed. Now, I'm quite fortunate
mm,
because in both clinics I'm in, I have the option to leave something for longer, say I want a longer gap, or because I'm the only
Oh.
vet there as well, I can do things like, for example, I had a German Shepherd in the other week, about 5 years old, that apparently the vet, you can't get near it. They've had to kind of muzzle it, and about 4 people holding it, and he was in for an injection. So I'm really fortunate. We had the conversation of, right, let's not do this in the consulting room. Let's do it in the waiting room, because we can shut the door. No one else is due in. I don't
Mm.
have to. We've got quite cozy, sort of comfy chairs in there.
More space.
More space. He can go off, he can explore. He hasn't got to just be held in one position. And I think probably about 25 minutes of just having a general chat with the owner, cooling the dog down, getting him to sit, give me a paw or not, and give him a treat. And we probably had about 50 treats in that time. That dog was amazing. That muzzle didn't go on
Oh.
once. He didn't grumble. I like literally did one thing like, oh, give me your paw, because I needed to check his foot anyway. He gave me that foot. I was able
Mm.
to have a look. I was able to listen to his heart. I was able to then give him his injection. And the owners, I thought the female owner was going to cry, because she's like,
Oh, bless.
we've been cancelling this appointment over and over and over, because we were the sort of new vet to see them. They'd come over from the States, and apparently every single visit had been so stressful that it was just too much. I didn't
Mm.
have all of that information before. I didn't realize, but I could tell they were worried. And I just said to them, so like you said, each week, come in, usually like lunchtime. We'll usually have a space between here and here. I'll come out, sit with him again, do all of this again, not give him any injection, and give it time. And okay, if we have to use the muzzle, we know we've got it there. And
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with having to use a muzzle to protect it. But what I didn't want is
definitely not.
everyone having to hold him really tight, and it's too much.
Mm.
So I agree with you that desensitization from an early age is important, and also being honest with the vet about the anxiety. I do a lot of things where I say, well, do you know what? Let me come out and examine him in the car park. Let me come and
Yeah,
examine him in the boot of the car.
seen that. Yeah.
It's that environment, sometimes, or just little things like cutting nails, dogs that can't have their nails cut. I pick the dog up, as obviously if it's small enough to, and I dance around with it. And often if I'm dancing and singing, I think they're all more like, who is this crazy person? And I cut a nail each time as I go along and just bob them like a baby. Um,
No, it's what works. It's great.
Using licky mats, I use loads of licky,
Yeah,
action and positivity. Um,
yeah.
but then I'm fortunate because I'm in clinics where I can do that and say, I
Mm.
know this animal is really anxious. So we need to leave half an hour, not 15 minutes. We need to do everything slowly. Do one thing like listen to the heart, and then 5 minutes of playing. And then one other
Yeah.
thing like, look at his mouth, and then 5 minutes of playing. So it is. So as an owner, you then have to take that responsibility to say, we don't always have that time. So like you say, popping in, getting reception to give them a treat. Is
Mm.
there a quiet time where they can just walk into the consulting room, even sit the dog
Yeah.
down, give them a treat? If the dog likes to be on the floor to be examined, tell your vet. I think most dogs like to be on the floor to be examined, so you don't need to go in and put them on the table. Just
Yeah.
anything that your dog enjoys.
Yeah, good. One of mine doesn't like going up on the table, and that's ever since she was spayed. So,
Oh,
to just, and it's the same, I think, for the groomers as well. But you go onto that table, but if you've got a vet that understands that and you're able to do it on the floor, then,
yeah.
it's going to cause less stress.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's what I always say to the owner, what do they prefer, floor or table?
Oh, that's really nice.
Just ask it every time. My knees are usually broken by the end of the
Oh,
day.
God.
So I need one of those gardening pads for
Or you're
my on the floor.
doing too many squats or something. God. Oh, get your exercise in for the day. I think we've sort of touched on this a little bit, but are there any other practical steps that pet parents can take to help their dogs feel more comfortable with vet visits?
Yeah, I think like we've mentioned before, with just going and being in there, and even little things. In fact, what we didn't say is that every time it's been going in there and just going and getting a treat coming out, but sometimes even just sat in the waiting room, just sat there,
Yeah,
like down with their dog,
watching the world go by.
watching the world go by, and then realizing, oh no, I'm not going in today.
What you said about when it was safe to do so, letting them off and sniff, because obviously the sniffing's
Yeah.
going to then help bring their arousal down, help calm
Oh,
them
it
down.
really does. And it's just trying to get that. And there are usually times where it is less hectic. So it's about sort of saying, is there a less busy time rather than sort of 6 o'clock when usually, 5 till 7 is a bit of a crazy time. I usually say to
Yeah.
owners, if they're anxious, could you do it? Like, you know, midday come in because
Yeah.
usually it's quieter. And
Yeah.
I think the more you go, the less stressed they become. But equally as well, it's like that with most things. Like, I notice people with muzzles, they just go all out and put the muzzle straight on the dog. That takes time. Using a buster collar,
Mm,
that takes time. Anything that
mm.
you can do, and anything you can do in preempting the problem. So things like, if you know that you're going to get your dog neutered or they need surgery, start getting them used to the buster collar now. Don't get it so that they have the operation and then they
And then
come out with
it's,
this great big cone and
yeah,
they just
scary
have
big cone.
surgery. Exactly. And I
It's
always think,
it's
try and
mad, isn't it? It's not rocket science, is it? But you wouldn't even think to do that,
no,
like, until you've just said.
no, and you don't. And it's little things like I say to cat owners, don't keep your cat basket in the garage. Keep your cat basket somewhere where the cat can walk in and out of it. Otherwise, every time you
Freely.
take it out, they're like, oh no, vets. Try to make it like just a normal part of the furniture.
And if it's there, obviously, like you say, it's desensitizing, because normally I've heard like instances where obviously it's come out and the cat's seen it and they've disappeared and then they've missed the vet appointment
I
because
get
it's
that a
gone
lot.
off up the road.
I get
I
that a
used
lot.
I used to work in a vets on
Oh,
reception, so
did
I
you?
kind of heard. Yeah, I used to work in a vet, so on reception for a while, and yeah, you hear all those stories.
Oh my gosh, you really do. And cats are clever,
They are so promiscuous.
they are.
Brilliant. As a vet, what changes or adjustments do you think clinics could make to create a more dog friendly experience?
I think sometimes we have to give in with those that are really anxious, and I think that we're better off prescribing anti-anxieties to be used before they come to the clinic.
Mm,
Once we've reached that point, I think we need to give something to help them feel better when they're there. I think, trying to maybe have more components to the waiting rooms, that if you have got more anxious dogs, is there a separate area that they can go
yes,
into away from some of the other dogs? Usually it's all space dependent.
it
And it's so
is.
hard to have these, but you would. I mean, crikey, if I ran a clinic, it's probably what I would do. I'd have a waiting room. I'd probably, go all out and have like a soft play for dogs in there.
Not just for kids, for the dogs.
No, well, no, kids would be banned from it. Just the
Yeah,
dog.
yeah, kids. At one of the specialist hospitals that I've been to, you probably know Anderson Moores,
Yes, I do. Yeah,
in sort of Otterbourne way.
yeah,
They have a cat area, so
yes,
it's separate from the dog area, and I like that idea.
yeah,
The cat
yeah,
can be put on the shelf on the basket
yeah,
as a cat area, and it's labelled as a cat area. And then I think there's covers as well. They say, "Oh, if you want a
yes,
cover, to cover the cat." But I really like the idea of like have if there is space, like there is an area for dogs that are a bit more sensitive and anxious and nervous of other dogs.
yeah,
There's an
yeah,
area there. I know a lot of them do sort of like say, "I'll wait in the car," and then it's like a military operation waiting for the other dog to leave, and then they
I know.
they let him in through the back door as well. That's another
Yeah,
option I used to
yeah,
see.
that's a good thing as well. And luckily, say because where I am, I can have it just one in, one out, so I
Good.
can kind of control that. But when you're in a busy place, you're right, and it just all the dogs feed off each other, and they all start to
Yes.
get wound up. And and we can't help it. I mean, I've got two dog reactive dogs.
Oh,
I know.
same
Well,
as me. I've got a few.
well, mine are clearly going to be dog reactive because it's two chihuahuas. So they.
Oh, I've got 3 chihuahuas. No, you haven't got chihuahuas.
I've got
I've
two.
got,
Yeah.
yeah, all mine are dog reactive. Like, they get such a bad rep, and like, they're just
Oh, well,
so
they're cute.
full of character and they're
They are.
spirited and personality. It's that I say it's that Mexican and they're fiery and
They
like
are.
spicy. Oh, you've got chihuahuas as well. So
Yeah.
you're
No, I love them.
preaching to the converted here.
Yeah, no, they're lovely. And the thing is, I always say to people, you've got to imagine that, like, it's like us standing next to T Rex every time
Giant.
yeah, it's really a
Yeah.
big old world when they're looking at everything. I don't know about yours, but
Yeah.
once mine have lost the kind of, oh, the dog's not going to do anything, they're then happy to hang out with them. It's just that
Yeah.
initial, I see
It
another
is
dog.
that initial thing, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
they
getting your
do.
back up and
Yeah, if the dog ran
like
after
they
them to play, they'd cry, mine too,
I often say it, and I know I shouldn't because I've got Rottweiler clients, and I love Rotties, but I often say that the Chihuahuas think they're the Rottweilers, that
They,
they're big, bravado, and they can take on the world.
they get called in the veterinary world. Chihuahuas get called the land sharks, which
Do
you may.
they? And I hate it in courses that I've been on or that I even run. You come to because I run a course on canine body language. You
Oh
come
gosh, I
to
have
the
to come on
slide
that.
where it's great. You come to the slide on aggression, and then there's a chihuahua
Yeah,
baring its teeth, and they just get such bad rep.
they do,
No.
and they're actually mine are really nice. I've got young kids as well, and they're great. They just snuggle up with the kids all the time. They're more like cats, sort of in a way.
Snuggle buddies, and we've got one that will push her bum into the smallest little area she can get into to snuggle in.
Oh no,
They are like
they're lovely.
cats. They're
They are.
lap dogs.
They're
Oh,
total
we
lapdogs.
could go off on like a whole episode on chihuahuas,
Oh,
but
we should do one.
oh, I love that you've got chihuahuas. Right, let's move on to education for pet parents and
Yeah.
professionals. Obviously, this is going to highlight, your courses and the value of accessible pet education. Your courses reach so many pet parents and professionals, but what inspired you to bring pet first aid and care training into the online space?
So that's quite an easy one, actually. So I was only ever visiting classroom based courses, which I still do as well. And a lady contacted me and said to me, would you ever consider doing anything online? Because I have really bad anxiety in group situations. And so I don't want to not learn, but I find it really difficult being within a group. And literally within that space of time, I found I was getting more and more requests for all sorts of different things, like, different neurodiversities that were causing people to not have that attention span or
Yeah.
not want to be in that environment. And suddenly, when you're right, there's a need here. And obviously, you probably know this yourself. A lot of online courses, they get really bad press, like they're not going to be up to scratch. So what I
Mm,
decided when I started to create online content was, yeah, my courses are not going to do that. Like, these are going to be very visual. They're all going to be narrated. You're going to be sat there watching something where you're really engaged.
mm,
I don't want you to go away thinking, oh, it's just not good enough for what I need. The idea is it's like being in a classroom with me.
mm.
And so that was really important to me, because I thought, and just a mixture. And also in this day and age now, lots of people have busy lives. They don't want to necessarily give up their Sunday to go somewhere and learn.
No,
They'd
yeah,
rather sit
travel.
down and do it. Yeah, do a few evenings a week, just pottering through at
Yeah.
their own pace. And also, I think it is a lot to learn. I say to people, this is a long, long day. For me personally, I prefer learning online, but that's because I like to re-go over something. I
Mm.
feel like I really need to, be like, oh, what did they say? Oh, let me listen to that again. Whereas,
Chicken wing.
oh, sorry. Oh my gosh, I can
Mm.
imagine my partner in there now going, don't, that's my little boy shouting chicken wing through an Alexa. Sorry. And
No, don't apologise. It's
oh my
brilliant.
gosh.
I thought it was like Siri or someone talking to you. Like my
Well, no,
watch
it's
was going off just as we started recording. Siri started bloody talking to me.
just say, in fact, what I'm going to do, unplug it in case.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
bless
because
you.
they're gonna start. There you go. It's unplugged, so we don't have random 6-year-old children shouting in the
Chicken
Alexa,
wing.
a chicken wing.
I do love a chicken wing. So
But yeah, so that was my idea for
yeah.
online. People can rewatch things back. I can deliver things like webinars to more people as well, because some people, for instance, this year I'm actually going to do I'm going to do a classroom two classroom courses in Scotland, and then I'm getting the ferry over to Northern Ireland, which I've never done this before.
Oh. Oh,
I've been asked if
wow.
I'll come and teach. And that's another reason for having a lot of this online, because I mean, I don't have people from the UK either. We have, quite a few in Australia and the
Oh,
States.
wow.
So again, it means that
It's a
I can.
wide audience.
Well, we
Yeah.
do actually, which I'm amazed. Whenever I sort of like send out a certificate or something, I think, oh my gosh, that's going to America. It's a great feeling that that some other people have clocked onto this and found you, because it's
Oh,
a what it's like. It's a busy market space, isn't it, for online training?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Oh, brilliant. So, how do your courses help owners to feel more empowered and less overwhelmed when it comes to their dog's health?
So I think less overwhelmed. Now, my two chihuahuas had a little spat the other day. Okay, they have a little silly sort of, it's nothing. Basically, Huey tried to hump Alan, and Alan didn't want it. Why would
I
you?
You said Alan earlier, and I had to like park it, but it's such a brilliant name.
I know, and Alan's the little underdog in our family. Not, I don't know if he does it by choice, really. I think he likes to be a mummy's boy. But anyway, there is a story behind this. So basically, they had a little spat. Huey fell on his side, and I think he winded himself a little bit. But he's 2.5 kilos. He's tiny. And it all seemed very dramatic. Now, the most dramatic person in that room was me. I thought Huey had done something major to his spine. So I pick him up. I tell the children to say their goodbyes because he's going to have to come with me to the clinic and he might not survive. Meanwhile,
Oh,
my partner Adam stood there like, maybe we should just give it a bit of time. And so, although I love as an owner to think you have empowerment, equally, we're so emotional about our pets.
we are,
And I think
we
that,
are.
it's hard to not overreact because actually it turned out he had to sort of winded himself. 15 minutes later, he's back to trying to hump Alan again. So it obviously just took the wind out of his sails, and I really overreacted even though I've got lots of knowledge, almost just couldn't think it through. So I think
Mm,
there's always that normal, there's nothing wrong as an owner sometimes to have that kind of instant fear. But then, like I did, like my partner Adam said to me, sit there and just think it through. And literally within about 60 seconds, I was like, you're right, you're right. He just took the wind out of his sails. He's not
so
dying.
Adam was the rational one in being the voice of reason.
Sort of there, my children. That's it. Everyone can stop crying. Huey's gonna be fine. I mean, it was so dramatic. I was
No,
like, oh
it's
my gosh.
hard. You are they're your family, aren't you? You're so you're emotionally connected and invested. Like I've had a situation where we had to go into the out of hours with one of ours, and they were like, it's touch and go, and to be
Oh,
told that, and
yeah,
I've never had to go through that before yet,
yeah.
luckily, but to be told that, it was like a stab in the heart.
Oh, it's
I
horrible.
just literally bawled my eyes out because they were like,
Yeah.
you better go in and say goodbye because it's touch and go. And oh my god.
It's horrible. I've had to have that with my own dog, actually. I know, even though I'm a vet, I took him to a specialist. He had a problem with his eye. And she said to me, I think it could be cancer. And if it is, when we take that eye out, he'll have to be put to sleep on the table. And I was having to do this. So I've been in that position, and it is
Oh,
awful. But I think, now the way things that are going, you were saying about online courses, we have online, obviously, vets as that are there doing video based calls. And
yes.
this is where this kind of knowledge that you would learn with me really comes into play. Because instead of doing the classic, which is what people do, my dog is a bit off, he doesn't seem to be that keen to eat. You don't get any more information usually. Whereas if you can say the heart rate's this, the temperature's this, the gums look like this is how he's breathing. I've thought about what's happened over the last couple of days, and this, we went here, we did this, anything relevant, you start to understand what's relevant, you start to realize what is not right, and that
Mm,
prompts you to get in contact with somebody. Whereas if you almost live in that bubble of just not having any knowledge at all, things go very missed, and and they
mm,
really, they become missed, and then what was the simple fix becomes very difficult, and you have potentially a dog that's not going to make it who may well have done. So
right.
I think that's where I like people to have that level of knowledge, and not just for those bits as well, but things like when I teach courses all about canine dementia or oral and dental health, I do a course on, do you call, how can
Mm,
what are you looking for? How can you improve things? What practical things can you do? Which the vet doesn't get a chance to tell you. So I'm
yeah.
just about to bring out a course on diabetes. And there'll be
Oh,
massive
okay.
focus on that of like, what can you do at home? And really, it's a 3 hour consult I'd have with an owner that I just don't have the time to. Teaching them how
Mm,
to, test the urine, how to test the blood glucose, how to body condition score to make sure they're not losing muscle mass, you know,
mm,
Why should you give the insulin at this time? What symptoms are you looking for? What do you do if the blood sugars go too low? All the things that we cannot do in a consult. And I feel awful just handing out a bottle of insulin and not much other information.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's kind of the main focus.
definitely. And you were saying obviously the use of online vets is quite useful, quite helpful to bridge that gap as well, I suppose.
It is, and as I say, but what they want is the more information.
Yeah.
It's hard for someone to say on the phone, or that just a couple of very vague symptoms. When people say
Mm,
my dog hasn't eaten for 2 days, do you think they'll be okay till the morning? I have no idea. That tells me nothing. I don't
yeah.
know. Whereas if it was a case of there's this, you can make a more informed decision and say, actually, yeah, that sounds like it could be this. It probably can actually wait till the morning, or that's very serious. We better see you.
Get get you in.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Do you have a favourite success story from someone who's taken your course and applied what they've learned? I bet there's all sorts of stories you've heard over the years and stuff.
So many. But the most, I thought you were going to say my favourite success story. I'll tell you mine. My favourite success story was a dog had its willy stuck out for about an hour. He comes down to out of hours. I walk into the consulting room. He takes one look at me and it shoots back in again. That's my favourite success
Oh,
story as a vet. He
oh
saw my
my!
and it
Saw
went
your
back.
face, and that was enough to send it back on its
I didn't
way.
know how to take that. I was like, oh, that's quite insulting, isn't it? But then obviously the owner was very pleased because it was fixed at no cost.
Oh God!
But success stories with first aid was a lovely one, actually, not very long ago. An owner, well, she's an owner and she runs a business, like an animal business as well. So she'd come on a course with me. I remember it so specifically because the course was the 23rd of October, and she learned all the bits and pieces. And then on the 1st of November, I have a message from her, and she said, I was out trick or treating with my children last night. I also thought this would have been quite funny to
I'm
have a
laughing already. I don't know why, because I just want.
This is quite
I think
funny,
it's
but
because
also serious. But the dog survives. So she's out, she's trick or treating. She gets to an owner's house, the woman's speaking to her kids, do you want some sweets, whatever. And this lady spots the dog really struggling, okay, and she's like, oh my gosh, that dog's choking. She pushes the woman out of the way who owns the house. I mean, the woman must have been thinking, what is going on? She literally goes over to the dog. She performs a Heimlich maneuver. Nothing happens. She gets the dog on its back and does something called external evacuation technique, which I teach, which is basically like a Heimlich maneuver on the neck. And out pops a knot from a rawhide.
oh
And
gosh.
dog is saved. And the woman's obviously, well, they went to the vet. She went because the owner by this point is like emotional because she didn't know and felt bad because she didn't realize. And equally, obviously, extremely grateful that particular situation happened, and probably also had fear of, why is this lady pushing herself into my home? Because she didn't know her dog was struggling. She must be ready to call the police. And they've become really good friends now, these two women, which is really great as well. The dog was absolutely fine, went to the vets. They gave a little bit of pain relief because they thought probably, caused a bit of, like scratching and things to the dog when that happened. And he's doing absolutely fine. And all rawhide has been chucked in the bin, which is also a successful part of
Good.
the story.
Where it should be. That's where it belongs.
I agree. So, but yeah, lots of lovely things, and lovely things that aren't even emergencies, just people recognizing stuff. Like I do a lot of stuff about neutering, and if you get it wrong, if a bitch is having a phantom pregnancy and you spay at the wrong time, she remains in that state for the rest of her life. And that can cause behavioural issues going forward. And
Yeah.
owners coming and learning with me and then going, I think that's my dog. And that being treated with hormones and the dog being like a different dog. Little things like that are big success stories. Things that I go, wow, I'm so pleased that you picked that up and that your dog now doesn't have to have a life of anxiety. It's better.
Brilliant.
So, loads of things. But that, definitely.
That sticks out for sure.
Well, the Willie story did, quite literally.
Well, yeah, God. Oh,
Sorry.
blimey.
I have a habit of lowering the tone.
Oh no, I don't mind that at all. I love that. Life's too serious
It
sometimes, so you've
really
got to
is.
have a bit of I laugh. Right. We're just going to be moving on to our final section for the sort of last 5 or 7 minutes or so before we bring this episode to a close. Your courses are great. Now, personally, I haven't done one yet, but I do want to do one. I think I get a cheeky discount as part of my Yappily membership because you've got a collaboration with Yappily now.
I do.
Yeah, so I've not yet done one of your courses, but
Well, I want to
I
do
definitely.
yours. So maybe we can do a switch.
Oh, okay,
I
yeah,
want
all
to do.
right. Well,
I'd
I'll
like to
be.
learn more about canine. I love
Oh,
learning.
I think every pet professional, vet nurse, pet guardian,
Yeah.
groomer, anyone that works with dogs needs to learn a bit more about understanding canine body language. So
100%. Yeah, I
yeah,
totally agree. Because that
yeah.
also
So I'm
helps by
big on
understanding
that.
body language. Yeah, you understand pain as well. It really helps for you to. So
Yeah,
I totally agree. So I'm going to be doing your
yeah.
course. That's for sure. I'm going to be doing it.
Oh, great. So yeah, but as I said, I've not had the pleasure yet, but I do want to do it. But I literally, because I'm a business mentor as well, so I help mentor pet professionals. My main focus is on new sort of dog walkers that are starting up, pet sitters, and dog trainers that want to diversify and add additional services to their offering. So I'm sort of like a pet professional mentor, helping them sort of get up and running with their
Yeah.
businesses. So I say to them about, you need to do this, you need to do that, but I literally just the reason I'm saying this is that one of my ladies, she's launching like a cat care of her business, the Mad Hatter cat sitting service,
Oh, that's cool.
as an additional service to her dog walker. And she won't mind me saying this. And she wants to learn more about cats. She's cat mad anyway. She's got
Yeah.
3 cats. I sent her a link to your feline first aid course today because
Oh,
everyone always does canine first
yeah.
aid,
Yeah.
but it might be different with feline. So I sent her the link to that today. So I think
Yeah.
it's great that you cover a wide range of different subjects.
Yeah, do you know it's funny because so my feline first aid, yeah, it covers. So I mean, some of the fundamentals, yes, they cross over, but with the cat course, oh my gosh, there's just I love that course for the fact that I think people would almost they'll take it and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know any of this stuff about my cat because, like you say,
Yeah,
the focus on training is always very much dog.
it
And
is.
actually, if I bring out a cat course specifically for cats, I would probably get 10 times less people take it than a dog related course, which is very sad because yeah, I do. I think it's a real shame. I did a lovely course on rabbits and
Oh
again,
wow,
you just don't get people, which I don't mind because I just want to be able to offer people all they can to learn. And I enjoy writing something a bit different because when I write a course, it takes me a long time and a lot of research because I don't
I
just
bet.
write it all off the top of my head. I need to make sure that, I'm up to date with everything. So I learn at the same time. So that's why I quite like
Exactly.
doing some different species as well because I see
Yeah,
those in the clinic.
yeah. And I'm bringing you up now. You've got these fantastic first aid kits of different sizes.
Do
I purchased one a few months ago and I sent it to my mentee, one of my mentees I was working with at the time, and she purchased one. So you've got these little kits. So tell us about your kits. I love them.
So that was another thing that I decided to do because I thought, well, first of all, I wanted it to be different because I wanted the whole of our business. I say our because my partner, he often works with me on just running all the bits and bobs. I
Oh,
wanted it to
lovely.
be different. I wanted it
Yeah.
to be like not I wanted people to think, well, if the kits are like that, which, we put them all together from scratch, they're really well thought out. I want people to think, well, if they would do that with a kit, what would she do with a course? And that's
Mm.
I tried to put 100% into all of those and make it different, like as, you know, give
They're
people
great.
something
The kits are
more.
colourful, and I think it says brave on the front of one of
Yeah, be
them, or
brave.
yeah, be
Which you
brave,
gotta
and they're
do.
nice. Yeah, they're really colourful, and it hangs onto my little walking belt, and it
Yeah,
comes out with me on my walks because it's like a mobile one. Of my bigger one's in the van anyway,
yeah.
but I have my little mobile one on me just in case.
Yeah, and
It's
I like to
great
put
that you do them.
no, and I like to think about. So someone said to me yesterday, no, Sunday when I was on a course, I was talking about if a dog has low blood sugar or you use honey or jam on their gums, and they were like, oh yeah, that would be a good idea to put in a first aid kit, wouldn't it? And I was like, here's one I made earlier. Like so, I tried to put things in the kit that I say to you,
Useful.
if this happens, you use an ice pack. If this happens, you use a hot pack. I want you to have the things there that you can go, she told me to do this, rather than all I've got in this kit are bandages and a pair of scissors, which can happen, and I
Yeah,
just wanted it to be that I've actually got the practical stuff that she told me to use. That was
definitely.
the whole idea, really. And hopefully it will tie in nicely because, well, hopefully within the next few weeks, I'll have a book as well.
Oh, we
I
love
know,
a
not one
book.
about my memoirs as a vet, although it has got some funny stories
You
throughout
you
it.
need to do a memoir or like something like that at some point. Honestly.
So it is a first aid book, but it has some nice little stories as you go along as well. But it's a very practical one. So, like you were saying earlier, I picked up, and you're like, you almost need something to kind of just, what do I do now? And that, straight away. That's what this book is. So it's not a load
Oh,
of waffle of seizures happen because of blah blah blah. It's
it's
if the dog is
practical
having a
advice.
seizure, yeah, do this, 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 so
Oh,
that
great. Well, I definitely want one of them.
I'll send you one. Then you can literally open it up. And we've gone one stage further that you can scan the QR code and it'll bring up a video. So when I'm trying to explain to you what, say, breathing
Oh,
difficulties are, you can scan it. You'll get my face showing you a little image of this is what I mean. So it then gives
that's so
you.
interesting.
So hopefully, people will then have that guide that's a really quick reference that they don't have to go, Googling, dishing through, they've just got
Yeah.
something they can open
And
up.
Dr. Google could be wrong.
But we all have a
Everyone
bit of
Google.
Dr. Google, don't we? When we've got a
Yeah.
headache, before we know,
Got a headache, you're dying, get up to A&E.
oh my gosh, I do
Um,
it all the time.
well, I love your kit. So, we'll be obviously in the show notes, we'll be linking and we'll be talking about your website and how people can reach you in a minute, but we will be posting your details and stuff. But Sophie, just a final reflection. So if there's one message you'd like pet owners, dog owners, pet owners to take away from this conversation, what would that be?
Learn, learn, learn. And you can never stop learning. And you
Yeah.
don't have to, everyone has their own opinion. You don't have to get drawn into, feeling like you have to do certain things in a certain way. Read while you're being told something. So even if your vet says, I think you should do this, prime example is neutering. Is it right for your dog? Don't, please go and research things. Don't just,
Mm.
again, because as vets we don't know it all. Don't be afraid either of feeling like you can't speak about weird and wonderful stuff. What I mean, I get people saying to me, oh, I use this in my dog's food. And there's a load of amazing supplements and products and great things out there. And you should be able to, research those, read about them. I'm always a contact. If ever you want to message me about something and you think, I just want to know more about this, or have you got an opinion? But yeah, keep learning, keep really like get in tune with your animal. That's what they're,
Mm.
with your dog, like really get to understand them, like you say, with the body language,
Yeah.
but their traits. Have a little notebook, note down their resting pulse rate, really watch their breathing and get used to what is normal. Just really understand them as much as you can, and then when something happens, which hopefully it won't, but if it does, you can really be there and know what you're dealing with. And
Yeah.
especially old dogs, oh my gosh, please, with old dogs, don't write them off. Don't
No,
just sort of think,
wrap
happens
them
a
in
lot.
cotton wool.
I know.
Um, the pulse thing, isn't that to do with the femoral artery and the hind leg? Have I
Yes,
got that right?
you
See, this
have.
is something else I used to teach in my puppy classes, is to tell the pet parents how to check their dog's pulse. So
Yes.
femoral artery, isn't it? And in one of the
Femoral
hind legs.
artery, hind leg. Usually, what I do is, it's quite nice. If I have an owner that has their dog diagnosed with heart disease, I teach them how to use a stethoscope, because now I need them to have like a very good idea on what that heart's doing. And coming to visit me once every 6 months isn't enough. So I always say to them,
Mm.
I really want this heart listened to every week. How
Oh,
fast is it? And so I really try and get them to learn about that. So, but no, you're right. The easiest way is in a thigh. I always say, and
that's
what
it.
dog doesn't like being touched in their inner thigh? I mean,
Yeah, I know.
they all. I mean, take Alan. Alan's like on his back. If I even go towards his inner thigh, he's like, "Yes, please."
Oh,
Um,
love and life. Oh,
they do. So
um, no, that's good. So, for any pet parent who's feeling overwhelmed by their pet healthcare needs, what's
yeah,
one small step they could take today just to feel more confident?
you have to block out the noise these days. A lot of the time, like, social media is telling you so much stuff about your pets, and Google and things are so much stuff about your pets. And I think, if you're feeling overwhelmed, think about, first of all, what's the one thing that you want to work on with your dog, and break it down. And, hopefully your vet's nice and approachable and you can speak to them, or you say reach out to other pet professionals as well, just for a general chat, and gather all the information, and don't suffer in silence. If it's something weird or unusual, or you just feel anxious about something, do reach out, because some people, they'll like dog dementia. There are some people that would think it was crazy if they mentioned, I think my dog's got dementia, but it's happening all the time. And so, no one thinks you're crazy, and also, your dog better than anyone else. When they go to the vets, they often play the game of, I'm okay now. They
Yeah.
do this. Just insist that they're not, you know them. I always say to an owner, you know them better than me. Is this behaviour what you've seen at home? No. Well, then I completely respect what you're saying, because you know them more than I know them. So, just gather everything you can. Block out all that noise of everyone, Joe Blogs down the street telling you this about your dog. You see it a lot in training, don't you? And behavioural stuff.
Oh God.
Such and such down the road.
No, I've had dogs for 50 years, so I'm an expert.
I know, and you've got to be careful with that, because there's so many knowledgeable people out there, but equally you just want to make sure what people are telling you, read about what people tell you. Doesn't mean what they're telling you is wrong, but just make sure that you have just looked into it, rather than, going to grab this, that and the other, and not really finding out about it.
Brilliant. That's perfect. I'm going to put you on the spot now, but you probably know lots of great people, but we've got tons of guests lined up for the Yappy Hour. Literally, I'm booking everyone in, and it's over the next couple of months. It's so busy. We've got breed experts, we've got groomers, hydrotherapists, trainers, behaviorists. If there was one person that you think that I should invite on to the Yappy Hour, who would that be? Is there anyone that kind of sticks out to you?
Two people, actually. So,
Oh, I love it. Blue's even better.
both holistic vets.
Yes.
They are. One is Nick Thompson, and Nick is very much into his nutrition. So he's a great person to talk to. And the other one is a wonderful lady who I think is amazing, called Shelley Doxey. And Shelley, she does all the normal conventional vet stuff, but she's one of the very few. We don't have very many herbal vets in the UK. So herbs rather than homeopathy, she's herb. She's one of the only few around, and her knowledge is incredible. She is just a lovely lady as well. And I think, she gives some nice little hints. I think little tips for people, she's really, really great. Then I could probably I could go on and on. Now you're asking me that. I'm like, I know another lovely skin vet, incredible,
Well,
give you
I
loads
mean,
of info.
send them over to me. I mean, I've not heard of Shelley before, but I definitely will be making a note. And Dr. Nick Thompson, he was mentioned in the previous podcast that I've
Oh, was
recently
he? Oh, he's
done.
Mr. Popular.
Yeah, I definitely need to reach out to him, because he's part of War Pet Medics. So I've got Dr. Connor Brady coming on soon.
Oh gosh, I haven't listened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so Dr. Connor Brady's coming on, and a few people said about Nick, and I do follow Nick. So, and I've done one of his sort of webinars and stuff that he's put on. So I have to reach out to him. Sophie, my God, what a jam packed! I think we could do another one in the future on
Yes.
something. If our listeners want to find out more about you, what's the best place to contact you? Tell us all your website and social bits and pieces.
Sure, yeah, so it's very simple. So you can find me at www.animallovepetfirstaid.co.uk, and there's literally a click there, contact me button as well, if ever you want to send me an email or something. And I got a list of all the things that I'm doing on there. There's a couple of free webinars as well. So, again, you've got a couple of things on there that you just want to learn a bit more. Both of those webinars are about 2 or 3 hours long as well. So it's not like a sort of just a short snippet. It's quite a lot to learn. And then on Facebook, I'm just Animal Love Pet First Aid. So nice and simple. But yeah, inbox is always open. I always say to people, please don't feel you've got to have done a course with me or anything with me, or purchase anything off me. My main aim in life is to help pets as much as possible. And if that means answering a simple question for you that means it's going to make an impact in your dog's life, or cat or horse, or it doesn't matter what species, then that's the main aim of my game. So I'm very happy to help as much as I can.
Oh, that's amazing. And your courses are really good value for money as well.
Thank you. I try to. I like to think people, can learn without feeling like it's going to cost them a lot. I want people to just have that, ability of any budget can say, yeah, I can do that, you know, because it's,
Yeah,
again, it just means that our animals get better care, really. So that's the whole
that's
reason.
it. Sophie, it's been absolutely amazing speaking with you
And
today.
you.
Like I said, like I think we could go on for even longer, but we might have to book another one in for later on in the year or something, and delve into something a bit more sort of deeper or something,
Yeah.
a certain subject area. But Sophie, Dr. Sophie Bell, thank you so much for joining me on the Yappy Hour today, powered by Yappily. It's been absolutely fantastic. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. It's been really fun. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Before I dive into today's key takeaways, I just want to congratulate some people that successfully guessed who our next guest would be on the Yappy Hour from our teaser post on social media. So very well done to Barker and Hound Dog Training and Behaviour, Liana Cavalanti Canti, Raggy Rascals, Sue Williamson, and the Puppy School in Plymouth. What an insightful conversation with Dr. Sophie Bell. Her passion for empowering pet parents and professionals really shines through. And I hope you found this episode as valuable as I did. Here are a few key takeaways from today's chat. Number 1. Pet first aid is for everyone, not just professionals. Knowing even basic skills can make a huge difference in an emergency and give you the confidence to act quickly. Number 2. Early desensitization to the vet is key to reducing stress for your dog. Simple steps like visiting the vet clinic for positive experiences can make a world of difference in their health and happiness. Number 3. Accessible education is a game changer. Sophie's online courses provide practical tools and knowledge that can empower you to care for your dog more effectively. Sophie, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your passion for helping pet parents feel more confident and prepared. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. Don't forget to check out Sophie's courses at Animal Love Pet First Aid and follow her on social media for even more tips and resources. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review or sharing it with a fellow dog parent. I'll see you next time on the Yappy Hour. Until then, take care of yourselves and your furry friends.